Hey everybody, welcome to another video. I finally got the next Spider-Woman comic, number 7, came in my subscriptions. The first one, this one I didn't review yet. I was kind of waiting because this one shipped at the end of last month. So last month we got issue 5 and 6. I went over 5, but 6 I haven't gone over yet. And so I figured instead of waiting for the next She-Hulk comic, because I kind of did those in pairs, I'm also going to do this with a comparison to the old Spider-Woman comic, from the late 70s by Wolfman and Carmine Infantino, just so we can kind of keep doing this comparison thing, and we'll analyze modern comics to the classic comics. But let's get into these. Again, this is the issue where she's driving her motorcycle, or riding her motorcycle to San Francisco. Going to San Francisco. That's obviously that's where she was in the original comic when she's out on the West Coast. There in San Francisco, and this is back in the late 70s. So now she's in modern day San Francisco. I don't know if you know anything about what's going on in San Francisco lately, but with like the homeless and a lot of it's not the San Francisco most people remember or like. It's gone a little wacky there, and they kind of touch on that a bit in this, which I think is kind of funny. Or actually, they touch more on when she actually gets to San Francisco. Goes on her way. Sorry, and then issue 7 is where she actually gets to San Francisco. So, I got the PDFs pulled up, not the PDFs, the digital comics pulled up of these, so we'll take a look at those. You can see them up and, see them better. We'll take a look at the art, and then at the end we'll do a comparison to Spider-Woman number 1 from back in 1978, and we'll give it a little look-see there. So, let's split the screen up here. So we're going to this one, issue number 6. Now again, this is the 2023 series. It's currently going on right now. I don't know if I touched on it before, but Spider-Woman's always been one of my favorite characters, even before puberty, even when I've liked most of the dudes, I liked Spider-Woman just because I liked the show, the cartoon that was on in the late 70s, or it was... Yeah, I think it was like 79 or 80, I think was when the cartoon was on, somewhere around there. And I liked, I always loved the costume design. I just liked the red and the black, the red and the yellow with the black, and then this, the eyes and everything, and of course her long dark hair. I just thought that just looked cool, even before I kind of, got into the teenage boy thing where I liked her for other reasons. So my love of her actually goes back She-Hulk, because she was. She-Hulk number 1 came out. The Savage She-Hulk number 1 came out in 1980. I already had watched this cartoon and had seen. I didn't collect these comics, but I had seen them, and I didn't really get a good look at them until like maybe into the 90s. I started picking them up, going back and trying to collect them all. Like there's like 50 issues in that series, and. I was just like, whoa! I was kind of blown away by my art. This is one of the characters that I loved back in the day, and I liked the art back then. So it's a good example to compare it to the art that's in the comic now. Now I think that let's look and see if it's the same artist that does number 6 to number 7. But number 7. When she gets the costume, and I'll get into that too, when she puts the costume on and she starts fighting Zax, or whatever his name is, it's pretty crazy. The artwork is pretty good. It gets good in the rest of the comic too. It starts off a little, but speaking of art, let's get to this cover. I've been wanting to talk about this cover since I saw it. I absolutely hate this cover. I think this cover looks terrible. The bike's rendered fine. It's just a side profile of almost looks like a Kawasaki, like a Kawasaki 300 or Kawasaki 450 from like the 80s. It just has that kind of look to it. You know, they never say what make it is. It's just the front headlight fairing like that was pretty common in some of those Kawasaki cruisers and street bikes back in the day. And this is, you know, I'm not talking about the crotch rockets. I'm talking about like just the regular cruisers. So it does look like a Kawasaki, but regardless, the bike's fine. You know, the saddlebags and all that stuff. Everything's fine. Even the motion blur of the lines on the mountains, and it's obviously just a photo refed black and white of a probably an Ansel Adams photo. And then, you know, that's fine. But her, I mean, obviously they're going to they wanted her in the leather jacket and the motorcycle boots and the jeans, and then, you know, and then you kind of see her costume underneath it. She's got the leather jacket. It's got the same colors as her costume. But, whew, you know, I like a thick girl. It's not that she's thick, because she's a thick girl, but her arm, you know, I don't know if, you know, they're using 3D models to do the base models on this, you know, and the thing is, when you use base models in like a 3D model for your base instead of just doing a gesture, you got to watch it, because especially when you use the camera, if you use the camera to try to get, you know, force perspective or get anything like that, or foreshortening, you got to watch, because sometimes when you draw over that and then especially start putting costume elements on the character afterwards and do a final render, I'm talking about hand render. You've already rendered the base figure, but now you're drawing the detail onto the character. You got to watch, because it flattens the image out. It might look nice in like your original 3D render, and it might look nice in three-dimensional because of the color, you know, or however you do that, if you do that, or if these people do that. But you got to watch, because then when you draw it, and this also goes for drawing from live drawing, like not really live drawing, yes, life drawing, but if you draw from magazines photos, this is, you know, back before the internet, when people had to use magazine cutouts for their reference, photo reference. If you drew it pretty close to the photo reference, depending on the photography, it could have been flattened out anyways, and then when you draw that, you'll flatten that image out. This image looks very flat, and the fact that it's that side profile of the motorcycle really flattens that comic out. I think what would have been better if I was to do this was I probably would have done a 3/4 view, either worm's eye, so the bike's coming at you, you know, and she's kind of looking down at, you know, at the camera as she's looking at the camera in this photograph, or in this drawing. Or I would have done it in, you know, a bird's eye view, where she's going down the road and she's looking up at the camera. I probably would have flipped it around, of course, so she's going the other way, but it's neither here nor there. But so anyways, but I would have done it in some kind of 3D. Doing that side, because it's not even a true side view. Like, if you literally looked at a side view is very flat, and I believe that's what the bike problem is. And then you've got her, and she's slightly cocked to a little bit, so you can see a little bit of her leg here, you know, and her other arm, because that is a perfectly flat side view of that bike. And now her arm, as I look here, I don't even see the end of her arm, like, literally gets cut off there. And there's a gap. You can see a gap between the background here. Let's look at that. Can we look at that close up? I'll read this. Here we go. You see that? There's a gap there. When they drew that arm, they just stopped. Oh, you know, or they erased it, and then the inker, or if the person who inked it, you know, just decided to do that. And then the colors came through and put that flat color for that arm. They left that gap. So it looks like her arm's cut off, like she's missing the lower part of her hand, because you don't see that other handlebar, because it's such a flat image. I mean, you can even see on the mirror here how flat that image is. I mean, those circles, that circle on that bolt there is almost perfectly round. You know, obviously, when you cock things at a certain angle, you get more of an ellipse, but that's almost a perfect circle. That's almost a perfect circle. This fairing is like dead on flat-sided. This line goes straight down. There's no ellipse to that, or either way to show different angles. That's flat on. And then you've got this character who's not flat on. And this oh, what is going on here? It's like, did they literally do this while they're drunk? This is so scratchy and so unappealing. And that helmet, I mean, her head is right there, right? That's the ball of her head. I know motorcycle helmets have padding in it and they go out, but if that was the case, this whole helmet should be shifted over to where the edge of this helmet should be about there and brought down a bit, because even if her ball of her head is there, even with like an inch, a solid inch and a half of padding in that helmet, they should not, that should be rounded there, and this whole helmet, because look how far back that goes from her. Her ear's there, it's the side of her head. You're trying to tell me that there's a gap that big in there? This whole thing needs to shift over about to there, so come in about there and cut the top of that helmet off, or just draw it, you know, in a better angle. You know, I just, and then her, alright, so my other problem is, I don't mind this, I don't mind even like her pants, you know, being a size too big, but it's just like that, it looks like she has no torso, like her, literally, like her torso should be, this should come up, so the back of her hip there should, even if she's thick, which she is, should come to there, and then that arm should be up here. And if she is leaning over like to ride a motorcycle, you see people do, I would have brought her shoulders up and her neck down to kind of where she's leaning into it, right? So you're seeing more of this part of your trapezius muscle. I mean, I know it's covered up with hair and sweater, or it's not sweater, her costume and that. I know I'm going to talk a lot about this cover, but this cover really bothers me, so bear with me. Yeah, I can't stand this cover. I wish the editor would have said, no, let's not go with that one. Let's try something different. They could still have her on a motorcycle going to San Francisco, but, you know, on the road. But I don't like that. Let's get into the comic here. So the artist is Ig Guerrera. I think that's how you pronounce that. Guerrera. I don't know if they're Mexican, if they're Puerto Rican, or they're Spanish. I don't know what it is, but it's definitely a Latin name. Ig, I'm assuming that's short for something. And I think that's the person who does has been doing the artwork lately. I should pay more attention to that. You know, the art's fine. You know, I think it's fine. I know she's supposed to look a little odd, this girl, this other superhero, but she looks a little wonky there. The guy looks cool. I mean, it's very stylized, looks cool. You know, the whole thing where she's flying down and she's kicking up a storm, that's nice, because you didn't see that a lot. And if you did see that back in the older comics, it was really cumbersome how they would do that. But now, with modern day sensibilities, they seem to, you know, looking at special effects in movies and stuff, you know, sit and watch Twister for a couple of hours, you know, and analyze that. But that looks nice. Obviously she's looking for, again, we're not going to analyze the story in this. I'm going to talk about the story, but we're not going to do a page per page. I'm going to skip around a bit here. But, and that looks nice there. That actually looks very heavy metal. I mean, it looks very heavy metal there, from Heavy Metal the magazine, like some of the European artists. I mean, obviously, I think this guy might be Spanish. If he is, then he's European. You know, a lot of Spanish, Italian, and French artists, you know, worked on, you know, heavy metal stories. You know, one thing I don't like about this page, I don't mind the full bleed panels, that's fine, but this gutter is way too small, especially when you've got these not extreme, but these, you know, you got this bird, this worm's eye view underneath the gas, you know, canopy here, the gas station canopy, and then you've got this action shot, which is fine, but you've got this action shot over the shoulder of him. And these kind of shots, because I've done them, and I just did one recently, these kind of shots, there is no real perspective in the shot. It's all kind of made up superhero perspective, but it does have a dynamic to it that looks nice. This is a nice panel, but you know what would have been even better than that was to this panel could have been shorter, or this panel. I would have done where she broke the panel. Maybe this artist doesn't like to break the panel, but they could have broke the panel with this, or put this up where she her head kind of comes here and goes here and breaks the panel, and then inside the panel borders is where he's at in the ground. And again, this looks nice. I mean, I really like this brush that they use, whatever digital brushes they're using to get this almost like a charcoal look. I like that, Looks like a charcoal drawing on like a rougher paper. I like that. Looks nice. But I don't know. I guess she's gone. I don't know what's going on with her chin there. That's a little odd. Yeah, those gutters are way too small on that page. Nice explosion. That's fine. Full page spread. Full bleed splash page is fine. Looks nice. They didn't go crazy, but you can have a tendency to go nuts with putting all the debris flying around. It looks like they had pretty good, and they take their sound effects and they kind of wrap it around the explosion there. That's nice. That should have been the cover, not specifically that drawing, because again, she looks very wonky there, but that type or like I said, I like the behind. But going that way, and then seeing the street signs and stuff. And you could even did like the mountains, like she's out, driving, in the mountains area, going across from New York to San Francisco. But, and the bike's, obviously it's very referenced, but that bike looks really nice. And they look like they're using that charcoal function in there to kind of get that in there as well. Looks like she's she's going through Chicago now. I think she stops in Chicago. Yeah, she stops in Chicago to take a break. I don't know if you've ever been on a motorcycle for a long period of time. I have. I've taken a couple of, when I had a motorcycle, it was a cruiser like that too. It was almost the same bike, but mine was a Honda. I had a Honda 300 Custom. So, I took a trip with I eventually took off all my touring equipment and had like a more bare bones bike, but I bought it used for like nothing, and I still had all the full touring package on it, fairing and everything. And I took when I first got it and first got my license and got got it insured and everything. I really didn't like the job I was at. And I was young. I think I was 21 or 20 or 21. I just decided, I kind of did what she did. I'm just, I was living in an apartment with people I wasn't getting along with really. I wasn't really happy, and I didn't like my job, and I didn't have a girlfriend, and I was pretty, you go through that period when you're, transitioning from a teenager to being in your 20s as a young adult. And I just, I had probably $300 or $400 from a paycheck, which, back then gas wasn't that expensive. You can go forever on a motorcycle, with the gas. I smoked then. It's like, I needed some cigarettes, somewhere to eat, something to eat, gas for the bike, and if I have to stay in a hotel, stay in a hotel. And I just took off, and I just drove. I kind of did the Neil Peart thing from Ghost Rider, but I didn't have, it wasn't a tragedy that sent me off. It's just my own kind of just lunacy just decided to up and do that. And I biked for a long time on the highway, and I was just fresh to biking too. And I gotta say, it beats the shit out of you. When you want to take a rest, and you'll want to take a rest often, you're just beaten up. Just holding those handlebars and just having to it's not like a car where you're driving and you're looking around, maybe, I'm going to grab something to eat, and, you might steer with your, now they got cars that steer themselves. But, I mean, on a motorcycle, you got to be paying attention the entire time you're on that thing. You can't, get lazy. And if you get tired or drowsy, or you just get kind of sick of riding, you kind of just feel like almost like a, I wear a helmet, and inside your helmet, you just kind of get this like claustrophobic feeling of like, pressing in on you, and you feel like, oh, I don't want to, it's like, and then you feel like, oh, then you kind of subsides, and you feel kind of like this euphoria feeling, and then that's when you're going to make a mistake, is when you just get that kind of light-handed euphoria, and the vibration of the bike and the road, and it's just like, you're like, I gotta stop. You gotta shake it off, and you gotta stop. and you got to rest. Go have a smoke. Go sit there and have something to drink, get something to eat, rest, because it's a pain in the ass. And she kind of says something about that in here, how it's it was a pain in the neck driving or whatever. But the art's here. I think she looks nice. She's supposed to be older now. Remember, she's had a kid. I would place her probably somewhere in like her late 30s, mid to late 30s ish, somewhere around there. So she's obviously still very attractive, but she doesn't look like she's 20, 21 anymore. She's not forever young anymore, which is nice. She's got more of a. This artist draws her with more of a specific look. And of course, the other girl's after her. She wants to catch her, whatever. And that's kind of this whole story. I mean, like I said, I'm not going to get into the whole thing, but she finds her. She's on a train, because she ends up taking a train for a while. Assuming she brought her bike. Yeah, her bike's on the train, I think. Yeah, I think it's on the train, because she gets it out later. And they do one of those train, moving train kind of silver streak, as I call them. A silver streak moment here. Again, see, look, now he broke the panel there, so it's not that this artist is not adverse to breaking the panel, but that one shot I would have broken the panel. It's fine. I think somebody made a comment about how older comics are a lot more dynamic than modern comics. I don't think that's entirely true, in my opinion. I think some of these shots are pretty dynamic. I mean, that's pretty dynamic there. Her kick is pretty dynamic. You've got a lot of these action lines. That's pretty dynamic. And you get the feeling that there's a rushing train going and they're moving quick. That's very dynamic. I mean, the foreshortening and forced perspective on that, they never did that stuff back in the day to this degree. I mean, maybe somebody like Neil Adams would have done it, but he's Neil Adams, right? The average, working class comic book artist from the classic period, they're not going to do anything that extreme. Look at the rushing of that train. That is a very dynamic panel. So, dynamics aside, if you think that the old comics had more dynamics than the new ones, that's not the case. And I've seen, that's pretty dynamic. I've seen this happen a lot, especially in her comic. She jumps around quite a bit. Look at that. It's a 2-page spread. I'm not a huge fan of the composition of it, but I mean, as far as her, I think she kind of gets lost in the sound effect, the special effect, and then these little supporting panels, inlay panels that are down here. You kind of get lost there. This part looks amazing. Look at the background, the way that is. And you got your action lines. Your action lines aren't solid black like they would do back in the day. They've kind of fuzzed them out, and they've done it with a softer brush to kind of, so they're not so, even though they're there, and they are pretty imposing, they're not real harsh. They don't take away from the background. The background's got a softness to it. And I also agree, yes, the person who did point out that, they said take away the color from these modern comics, and you'll see how bad the art is. I've seen, I mean, you can even find it here. I can actually go into my software that I have for doing comics, and I can pull the color out and just look at the black and white. And trust me, I've stared for hours on classic and modern comics in hand at comic book conventions, because I love that. It's one of my favorite things to do, is just look at original art, like the ink, everything, the actual pieces of art. If it's digital, I like to look at just the best possible digital copy you can get of it, if it's just digital inks. And like I said, I do all my stuff 100% digital now too. So I look at that stuff very closely. And the artwork, I mean, you can even if you weren't doing this digitally, you could still do all of this stuff that they have obviously used a custom brush for. It might not even be a custom brush. That looks like a cross-hatching brush. You can just cross-hatch with the pen, obviously. You could even do textured. You could take a sponge. You could take a toothbrush. You can take a lot of things to get that look. And even this stuff. You could have taken a marker. You could have taken just like a marker that's starting to lose its ink with a ruler, and you could have done those lines so that they're not super black. There's a lot of things you can do to mimic that stuff, but all of this softness. I mean, I love classic inks. Trust me, I love the feathering. I love the nice, clean art. But to say that this stuff would look like crap without the color, I don't think so. I don't think so. I'm gonna have to dig up some of that stuff sometime, and show some of these pages or these newer, more modern pages without color, and you'll see that it holds up pretty well. I mean, sure, yeah, all the special effects stuff they couldn't do before, and it looks amazing, and it it definitely adds a lot to it, and they couldn't do this back in the day. However, the actual art itself, it's still pretty strong, because you got to realize a lot of this stuff, like these in the background, a lot of this stuff is probably inked by the artist. And the thing is, the colorist has gone in and they've taken those layers and they've tinted all of those lines to make it look like it's just color. I'll bet you a lot of this stuff, these clouds, if you see the original artwork, you would notice that these clouds are all inked. It's just that the colorist has tinted the ink to make her stand out and kind of fuzz out the background. So not everything is in focus. I gotta learn to do that too. I have a tendency to make everything in focus, and it's better to be able to, like a real photograph or a real image, taking a camera, you got to realize, depending on the lens you're using, if you have a deep focus lens, like a telephoto lens, then that's going to flatten the image out too. So there's a lot of things that, if you're not into the stuff or you don't have a working knowledge of photography, cinematography, drawing, artwork, computer drawing, traditional drawing, I've got a pretty good handle on all of that. Remember, I've been doing this for 40 plus years, so you're gonna, I'm not saying the person, because the person's, entitled to their own opinion, but I think we're getting into the objective part of things that are like, well, that's kind of more objectively wrong. It might be subjective. Personal taste, again, personal taste. You might not like that. Now look at that panel. I mean, with the cars like that going off the track, that is a nice, dynamic, very dynamic. That's very dynamic panel right there. You've got this Dutch angle in here inside the car. All these are Dutch angles to really show. Dutch angles are used, to show urgency or show that there's something's happening. Which is also a dynamic. If you go look at any, I got to dig it up. I think it mentions it a couple of times in my comic book, How to Draw Comic Books. They say, the use of, and it says it also in cinematography books, is if you use Dutch angles, it's a mise en scene. I can't remember what the name of it. There's a French word for it that they use. Mise en scene. Je ne sais quoi, something like that, and I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's a device, a cinematic device that's used to show urgency, show that something's not right, and it's usually under dynamics. They usually put that specifically in dynamic storytelling, is by using Dutch angles, and this thing's Dutch angled shit, because this thing's Dutch and this thing's all over the place. Train's going off the track, right? She gets her motorcycle. She has enough time to get her motorcycle, that's comic book logic right there for you. She has enough time to get her motorcycle out. Of course, she's going to ride her motorcycle and jump the thing. That's pretty badass, pretty cool, very Evel Knievel. And then of course, but she sacrifices the bike. She's got the kid. She goes back to save some kid, and then she jumps. The bike, goes to its demise. So no more. And where's the fairing at? What happened? That looks like a Honda. That looks like my Honda. That bike on the cover looks like it's like they're not even using the same type of bike. Now, in that regard, and that happened, trust me. I mean, you think that Jack Kirby knew how to draw a car correctly? A lot of cars back in classic comics is like, oh wow, suddenly it's a Ford. Now it's a Plymouth. Now it's a Chrysler. Now it's a GM. Cars were all over the place back then, and motorcycles too. Motorcycles, geez, some of the bikes they drew with Ghost Rider. I mean, they look like comic book bikes, but regardless, yeah, Sorry, I'm taking so much time on this. Let's try to wrap this one up, and I'll get to the next issue. But yeah, it's a different bike. That's a different bike. It's a completely different bike. Those are different. Those are completely different mirrors on that bike than the other bike. So apparently she stole somebody else's motorcycle and then jumped it and blew it up. Okay. You know, she lands, she's got the kid, blah, 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 saves the kid, saves the day, she's the hero. You know, she decides, I think she goes, or she arrives finally. I think she takes the plane and flies, and then arrives in San Francisco. And then, of course, the cover to the next comic. So let's go to the next comic here, which is this one here. Nice cover. I think she's a little too... She's not that built. That's one thing. Okay, so another... It's the same artist. I don't know if it's the same cover artist, but the same artist who does both issues, so we figured that out. But I gotta say... That is definitely a photo-refed bridge of the... What's the name? The Golden Gate Bridge? Is that what it's called? I can't remember. What's the bridge in San Francisco? Golden Gate Bridge, right? I've never been to San Francisco, so I couldn't tell you, but whatever that bridge is called in San Francisco, it's definitely photo-refed, which is fine. I mean, obviously, photo-ref that stuff. One thing I gotta notice, though, is, I mean, especially when you look in print form, is everything is so dark. And I had a conversation with my friend about this, how modern comics, everything's so dark, but film, too. MCU stuff, you know, whenever it's DCU, a lot of stuff now is just so dark. And I don't know if I like that. Like, even, it's like, you'll sit there and watch, like, whatever, fill-in-the-blank TV show. I was watching Rebel Moon. Anyways, and, I'm watching it, it's dark out, it's like after the sun's gone down, you know, the lights are all off, it's like I'm in a movie theater, I'm watching it on my big TV out in the living room, and it's just like, I'm like, I can't see what's going on, it's so dark, and if you can't see what's on the screen in a pitch black, not pitch black, but a fairly darkened room on a television that's backlit, it's shot dark. It might not be Han Solo, or Solo, the movie, dark, which was just ungodly dark, but everything's just so dark now. It lighten things up. That's one thing a classic comics does have over modern comics any day of the week. It's because of the coloring. But, like, the yellow and the red, they're two primary colors, and they're almost like 100% saturated in the original comics. So that yellow and that red really pops. And if you add a yellow and red, you know, logo type on top or whatever, you know, it really stands out. The way they've got this, it almost bleeds into the background. And I was doing a page, just recently did a page, and I had, and the girl's hair I thought it was a little bit too close to her skin color, and you know, it bled a little bit like this. Because I was trying to, you know, do modern style coloring, but her neck, it's like, what is going on there? It's not the She-Hulk. That's even pretty. That's too ripped for the She-Hulk. That's not Jessica Drew. It's not the girl we just saw on the motorcycle. It's not her. That girl is not that big. She's not that ripped. I'm sorry. You can just tell on her shoulder width right there, right? This is dynamic for certain. That scarf's very dynamic. Got the blowing in the wind with this, you know, San Francisco treat here, the Rice-A-Roni, the San Francisco treat town car here. But it's a weird perspective. I don't know if I'm digging that. It's fine, I guess. But again, with her hair and the angle, and you've got all these clothes bulked on her. You know, one thing that's nice about drawing somebody skimpy or nude or, you know, a tight costume is you can bend the spine and stuff. You can work against those angles to still have that dynamicism, but not flatten the image out so much. She looks a little different there. This guy's not very good at drawing her consistently looking the same, but, you know, they had the problem with that lots in the classic comic. It's just a general issue with drawing comic books, is getting your characters to look the same panel to panel. This guy is a professional working for Marvel, I would assume. It's not terrible, but it's a little off. That's a really... I understand that that's a hill, and I understand the hill's starting to flatten out, and this guy's on this bike here, but, it's a pretty harsh perspective there. If it's drawn from photograph, then it's drawn from a weird camera angle, or a weird camera, yeah, the angle on the camera, or the lens is a little odd. But it's funny though, because he's talking about, it's like this is how the modern people are, and from what I've heard, because I've never been there. But I mean, you could tell this, because the type of way this guy is about his bike or whatever. This isn't just a San Francisco thing. This is just how modern people are, very self-absorbed, and you don't see the trolley car that's about to hit you. The trolley car, which she points out, by the way, is going 10 miles an hour. There's a good chance that he's not going to go under the wheels if that car hits him at 10 miles an hour. It's probably going to push him over. I mean, it could push him over and run over his leg, maybe. But he also has time, and the engineer says, he goes, I had time to stop. I'm going 10 miles an hour. He could hit the brakes there. I just think he was thinking that this guy's an idiot. Is he really going to just sit there? He does hit the brakes. But she has to be the hero, which is fine, but she's not really... I'm not saying I could stop the train at 10 miles an hour, but I would say probably, it doesn't seem like it takes a lot of super strength to do that. But anyways, who know what do I know? I'm not going to try, so I'll probably get flattened by a 10-mile-an-hour Rice-A-Roni San Francisco treat vehicle here. But anyways, again, she looks just like a girl I used to work with there. Looks like Nancy. It looks like Nancy's body, too. Her body looks odd there. But that's very dynamic. I'm going to keep pointing that out. Of course, it's San Francisco, it's modern days. There's protests going on. People are protesting this company. It's very dystopian. It's very modern day corporatism. I mean, the whole nine. Everything that's going on in this comic is very poignant to things that are going on today, which I think is pretty funny. And no, it's not a Black Lives Matter. It's not like these aren't a bunch of Antifa over here, right? These are people that are like, hey, this company's come in and stealing our property, right? It's more nationalistic, tell you the truth. Or more, freedom of whatever. It's not really, this isn't a Black Lives Matter thing. This isn't an Antifa thing. I know some people might make YouTube videos and go, look, Antifa! And what? It's not what that's about. Read the frickin' comic and you'll realize it's not what it's about. It's not what's going on there. There's words on the page that you could read that'll tell you what's actually going. You don't have to just, assume something and then speak it like it's a fact just to, fit your agenda, which is, they're anti of their agenda. I'm so sick of this stupid fight between these dumb motherfuckers, is what I'm going to say. Back and forth, it's just like, I understand, yes, these people are a little wacko, but guess what? You're just as fucking wacko as these people, right? And it's just, there's no truth. There's no middle ground. I know everybody hates people in the middle ground because, you got to pick a side because it's tribalism here, right? But, Jesus fucking Christ, sorry. That got me off a little bit. Anyways, so she gets whacked. This guy's guard pops this old lady, and then she steps in. She gets whacked. It doesn't seem like it should hurt her too much since she's got super strength, but I think she does F up her arm or something. Why am I saying F now that I've actually, dropped the F bomb a few times? Anyways, don't worry about it. Yeah, she gets whacked with, I guess, it gets some of the storytelling in this. Again, these gutters, come on. I know you're going for the cinematic look here. You're going for the very, who did that all the time? Frank Miller would do this a lot, especially in, action scenes. Usually it's two ninjas fighting, or Ninja and Silver Samurai and Wolverine going at it. But yeah, this type of thing. A Dutch angle there, showing urgency. That's more of a regular angle. That's Dutch. It's going Dutch. Anyways, but yeah, these gutters. It almost looks like a what do you call it? A storyboard for a film it's shot in Panavision or CinemaScope there, but I think they could have let it breathe a little bit more, and because it's not only that you've got these tiny gutters, but you're going full bleed on the panels. It's a little harsh, I think. I mean, the panels are still small, but I like this. I like this thing's kind of neat. I don't know why they didn't double it up down here. Maybe they thought it was going to be overkill, whatever. But there's also something that it's hard to do is balancing. There's a lot of things on a comic book page. This is a busy comic book page. There's so many aspects you have to balance to make things look harmonious. And I'm not saying I do it great, and I'm not saying even the pros do it great all the time. But it's definitely an uphill fight to get that right. This guy comes out of nowhere. I guess it's an ex-boyfriend. I can't remember him from the comic. Maybe he's from the comic. I'm assuming he is, but I can't remember. That's a nice hair there. See here, that body is not the girl on the cover. That girl is not the girl on the cover. That's her stunt. That's her bodybuilder stunt double on the cover. Nice facial expression there. Again, her face just kept morphing a little bit. I mean, he looks fine. Of course, it's San Francisco. Got to be a top knot. And if an Asian guy's got facial hair, you got to take him seriously. Asian guy with facial hair, he's wizened. You throw a top knot on him too. Now he's right out of the Seven Samurai. He's super wizened. You got to listen to him. That looks more San Francisco there. She moves into the place. Okay, so here's what I'm thinking. Up until this point, I'm thinking, you know what? We went an entire issue with no costume, right? And then we went this issue so far, half the comic, no costume. Like, come on. I'm like, seriously? Are we going to get no costume for 2? I cannot stand it when a comic book character is out of costume for more than half an issue. You got to have the costume on sometime in the issue. Unless it's like, if it's a holdover. Like I said, I'm a monster of the week kind of person. But I'm thinking 2 issues without her in her costume. It's like, are they purposely? Because once you put her in her costume, it's kind of hard not to draw her sexy. And it's just like, are they purposely putting her out of her costume to avoid drawing her sexy? Because this is also, remember, not only is her character, the costume very, suggestive, very sexy, but this is Spider-Woman we're talking about here. Spider-Woman, the whole Milo Manara cover is what kind of sparked this whole insanity, during like the height, the rise of the wokeness, the rise of the social justice warrior was happening, because this is one of the catalyst characters that made that happen because of the Manara variant cover, where it's like, she got her butt way up in the air. It's just, everybody lost their collective shit, and I'm like, okay, so are they trying to avoid it? I don't know. And then, boom! Nope, throw her right back in there. However, that's a very dynamic pose, by the way. However, okay, look how bony her butt is. Look how thick. That girl is thin, this girl who's drawn here, right? Look how small her hips are, how bony her butt is. And, even here, right? Look how thin her leg is. That is not... that's not Spider-Woman's... She looks like a kid there. That literally looks like a teenage girl right there, right? That does not look like Jessica Drew, and definitely doesn't look like the good girl on the cover. Definitely doesn't look like those hips right there, right? It's like, this is my problem, is consistency. And there are ways you can fix that, and maybe they're not utilizing them. And if they are, they're utilizing them wrong. And this is one thing that's definitely true about classic comics, is the classic artists, especially ones that really knew their shit, like Stu Buscema, those guys, when they drew a character, and we'll talk about Carmine Infantino if I got time here, they know their stuff, right? And they know their anatomy, and they know their characters, and, I've seen it more times than not that nowadays it's just like, even if you use a photo reference of some other person, it's just like, you gotta kind of have to make look at that arm! You're telling me that arm is the arm from the cover? Right? So yes, I'm not saying that modern comic book art, trounces classic comic book art by any stretch of the means. I'm just saying is there are artists that do a great job. This looks nice, but obviously, the closer I look at it, I'm starting to pull it apart. Like, that arm. That is not the arm from the front cover. I love she's doing the crazy, gymnastics over the thing. That's with the nice cut here for the darkness. She makes a joke, too. It says, she's trying to be a ninja, or trying to be stealthy, and she's got this very garish costume on. It's hard to be stealthy in, but she's still being stealthy nonetheless. Like I said, she's still drawn sexy because put her in that costume and boom, Bob's your uncle. That's the other thing is maybe they're trying to tone down her curves in the costume, but it's like you can't draw her curvy out of the costume and then draw her curvy in the costume. That makes no sense. I love this. I think this is great. I really like. Obviously, this is inked. You might not know it, but those are ink lines, right? It's just that the ink's all been tinted now, and they've used brush. The colorist has gone in and tinted all of the ink lines so that she stands out. Hair looks fine. Look, now suddenly her shoulder muscles just grew in the last panel. Now her triceps are starting to grow. It's like she's the Hulk. That butt does not look right. You trust me. I like a nice big splash page with a nice big butt shot, but that butt shot is that is a very, very skinny girl with no hips. That's almost a teenage girl. That's almost like a 14, 15-year-old girl body right there, right? That is not, a 30-something-year-old woman who's had children who still tries to keep it together so she can put on the costume and has superpowers. That just looks odd to me. So, and the way they did this, it almost looks like her outfit is transparent there. Here's the thing. If this shot, right, it's like, oh, well, no girl looks like that. Well, yeah, lots of girls girls look like a lot of the ones in the Manera photo. You can't get in that position. It's a comic book. Can anybody get in Spider-Man's positions? And here we go. It's like, this is a gratuitous butt shot, which is, bravo. I'm glad to see these type of shots are coming back, but I'm just like, you're not going to go after this artist? He can't hide behind his diversity, equity, and inclusion, because Manera was the Italian or Spanish. I can't remember what Manera is. I think he's Spanish. This guy's Guerrera. He's Latin, so he can't hide behind his ethnicity as a shield. This isn't a middle-aged white American dude drawing this comic that you can totally go after. No, this is a person of color doing this, so you can't blame it on that. Of course, I don't think that really was in full force when the Spider-Woman controversy happened. I think that stuff built onto it. So everybody was for fair game back then to attack. But, yeah, I think it's a great image. Her hips, it's not even like I'm talking about her crack. That's not even what I'm saying, although that's definitely flat. It should be rounded. But her hip, look at her hips to her lower torso, or her lower abdomen, right? That's your lower abdomen. Here's your upper abdomen, lower chest, upper chest. Just think about 4 different quadrants there, right? And that's the pelvis, right? Her pelvis is the pelvis of a 13-year-old girl, and so it's that body proportion is not right for a woman in her 30s who's given birth. Even if she worked out all the time and got all the the pregnancy fat off, went nuts, her body wouldn't look like that. But, that looks beautiful. I think that page looks beautiful. The way the Zax guy's drawn, I think it looks beautiful. I'm pretty sure I remember him from Marvel Universe. But anyways, and it looks, I think all of the bells and whistles, all of the prettiness of it looks amazing. I just have issues with the drawing. And in this case, I'm going to say yes. If you were to take away all the color, this would all be inked. This isn't a problem. The monster in the background is not, or let's call him the brute. The brute's not the problem. He's drawn just fine, right? And if you took away all the color, he'd look amazing as well. Most of her is fine. You take away all the color, you're still going to have these lines. These lines are all tinted, by the way. Her hair looks fine. Even if you took away the coloring in her hair, you're still going to get the silhouette of her hair looks fine. But that is an issue. That is an issue. That whole area here is an issue. And that's obviously where they want your eye to go right to it, too. So it would be different if it was a shot where that wasn't the emphasis and you kind of could just gloss over it. But that's like right in your face. It's really hard to miss that. Again, that's not Jessica Drew. I just did Jessica just recently in one of my comics, and I tried to get her as Jessica as possible. So then these other characters show up, these assembly, these younger crew. What was he called? The Moon Squire? Instead of Moon Knight, he's the Moon Squire. I chuckled at that. That's funny. Oh, it's a dude, or is it a trans dude? I don't know what that is. It's San Francisco. What do you expect? But he's got Captain Marvel or Miss Marvel's Warbird costume on there, which is kind of weird. And I think he's supposed to be a play off of Captain Marvel. He's like, I don't know what he is. Can't remember what his name is. You know, I think everything else. Look at again. That is it. Everything. The hair looks nice, right? It's just this right here. Fix this. Just fix it. That's all I'm saying. Just fix it. I mean, it doesn't take me completely out of it. I read this fine, and I'm not really noticing as much until now. Really analyzing, and that hair looks awesome. That's really nice looking hair. But that looks like that's a junior high student right there. Again, not a woman in her 30s who's had kids with superpowers, you know, who's self-conscious about her weight, so she's always trying to make herself look good. That's not the person who's standing right there. This girl is the same age as these young people. These are younger people in the back. I'm assuming they're, you know, either teenagers or young adults. She looks like she fits in with these. She doesn't look like she could be their. Maybe her. Probably not. Okay, that's going to be the cover of the next issue, right? I'm assuming this is a different artist, but even still, what is going on there? So I guess let's do this real quick. So we'll make this an hour. Here, give me a second. I'm gonna put these side by side. So I'm going to, let's see, go here, and then let's pull up this one. We'll go side by side here too. And I do want to go back to a certain few pages too here. So give me a sec. Bear with me. We'll go back here. Okay, so now we're going to compare this new comic of Spider-Woman to Spider-Woman #1 from 1978. And this is Carmine Infantino doing the artwork. That, I don't even think she was supposed to be that old then, but that is definitely, that could pass easily for a woman in her 30s, right? As far as body. Look at the hip, look at the thigh. You know, everything looks great there. Anyway, that is a lot more dynamic than this, right? This is pretty flattened image. You know, so the dynamics isn't an issue here. And again, this girl on the cover, right, isn't much different from the girl on the inside as far as her body, right? It's about the same. That's a very dynamic shot. I mean, it was a great shot that Carmine, you know, when Carmine Infantino wasn't busting people's legs for the mob, he was doing comic books. Anyways, you know, the eyes were a little weird in certain spots. I think definitely John Buscema, when he did the Spotlight issue, her first appearance. He did a better job on her face. Carmine's not great on the faces. But as you can see, she's just running around here, right, doing action-y things. Yes, you could take away the color, right? These, like I said, this is all inked. This is not all color here. You know, that's a very straight-on one-point perspective shot. This is also a one-point perspective shot, one-point perspective shot. You got 3 similar perspective shots. As far as dynamicism, look at, you got 2-point perspective here, 2-point perspective here, and then you've got a 1-point perspective shot, right? Because you got to think that she's up on this, you know, upper level, so the horizon line's back here, but that's still, you can tell by the lines here, that's a 1-point perspective shot. Now you got a bird's eye, you know, just like this, 2-point perspective, and then you've got, that's a 1-point perspective, then you got a 1-point perspective. This one here, that's 1-point perspective. That is 1-point perspective, but tilted. It's weird how that is. That's a lot of similar angles. It's a nice looking page, and her body looks fine, but that's a lot of similar pages. So as far as dynamicism, you know, I think the new comics are just as dynamic as the other ones. You know, they don't, obviously, bigger gutters helps. These gutters are too small. You know, this is classic 6-panel tier. This is not. This is modern. This is not even based on the 9-panel tier. I don't know what I would classify this as. I would just call it modern, just anything goes tier, because you're doing full bleed panels with these tiny gutters. But this right here is classic Jack Kirby 6-point panel, 6-panel tier system. I know there's more than 6 panels on the page, but they've broken this one up. But, you know, her face looks nice there. This is before she dyes her hair. That's why she has that other mask. She hasn't dyed her hair yet and let her hair out. So we'll get to that. So we're going to go back to more of the action here. I know there's lots of cool stuff. The thing is, people don't draw like this anymore. This whole, like, you know, 60s classic science fiction kind of, you know, tropes that were used back then in the 70s, they don't, all that sensibility, and Carmine was probably in his 40s then too, maybe almost 50 when he drew that. They don't draw like that anymore. The same, everything's now is based off of MCU or based off of more modern sensibilities of, you know, science fiction storytelling. So you're not getting this atomic age kind of, you know, classic, you know, science fiction here. You're getting, you know, you're getting more modern sensibilities. Sorry, I keep going back to that page. Okay, so then she, you know, she takes, like I said, look at that. I mean, she's got some hips on her. That's in the 70s. That's when girls in the 70s, everybody was, you know, twiggy. And she's definitely not twiggy. I mean, she's got some giat, as the kids say nowadays. Or she's giat. Or however you use that in proper punctuate or proper grammar. Anyways, like I said, and again, that's when I went back and looked at these comics as, you know, in the 90s, in my 20s, and I'm like, wow, man, she definitely, I knew something was up when I used to watch the cartoon back in the 70s, but I was like, wow, yeah, she's thick. She's a little thick, I'm not gonna lie. Anyways, you know, and this is classic. I mean, this is considered classic. It might not be Carmine Infantino. He's not. I said he's not Neil Adams. He's not John Byrne. He's not John Buscema. But this is classic comic book art from the Bronze Age, and you know, this is modern comic book art, right? It's gonna look different. You know, I like the roundness. I like the more, you know, I like the subtle roundness and the curves more, you know, than this, because this is like, that's literally like an arrow point. I mean, it's like her bone from her pelvis is going to just rip right out of her butt cheek there. You know, that's pretty bony up there. Of course, at that angle, though. Again, here we go with angles, too. It's like, nobody can get in that position. Yes, gymnasts can get in that position. It's somebody, you know, I'll put her arms straight down. She's on the, you know, the vault, or whatever, not the vault, whatever that bar is called. parallel. What's that bar called when they up there and they spin around? I'm not a gymnast, so I couldn't tell you, but whatever. So that's a classic comic. That's Carmine Infantino. He did a lot of the artwork for Spider-Woman in that comic when it came out, right? Written by Marv Wolfman. Arguably, is Marv Wolfman a better storyteller than this guy? Probably, yes. But he's Marv Wolfman. I mean, he's known for... Steve Fox doesn't have the pedigree that Marv Wolfman had at that time, too. I'm not talking about Marv Wolfman now. This is before the whole Crisis of Infinite Earth. This is before the new Teen Titans. This is before all of that. This is Marv Wolfman before Marv Wolfman really started to hit his prime, right? But he still had more of a pedigree at this in 1978 than Steve Fox does now. I don't even know what I have to look up Steve Fox. I don't even know what else he did. And the artist, I got to look up and see what other comics he's done, right? However, that said, here's the thing. Do you like this? Let's go to their splash page. Do you like this, or do you like this? If you don't like this, right, that's fine. And if you like this, I mean, I'm warming up to this stuff. I actually preferred this for the longest time. And I'm just like, I'm kind of sick of looking back. You got to look forward. I'm only going to have probably, if I'm lucky, 30 more years on this planet. And I want to enjoy things that are fresh and new, even if things are problematic. I don't want to sit there and just rehash stuff that I've looked at. I mean, I'm bored of this. This is like being married right here, right? This is marriage sex right here, right? This is, new affair. Marriage sex can only go so far, You kind of, especially after the 7-year itch, and this is 1978. This is way past the 7-year itch, right? You're ready to, have a fling with the college student at 50 years old at this point, right? So, you know what I'm saying? I mean, it's, I want to find, and maybe she's batshit crazy, right? And your wife was more, your ex-wife now is more, was more, not as batshit crazy as this, 20-year-old, 21-year-old that you're dating now, right? But, and maybe she's got a head full of crazy because she's of the completely different generation than you, right? But she's still good looking, she's still young, and she's still fresh and new, right? So there's a weird comparison, Sorry to go down that avenue, but I just wanted to make that comparison. I know it's probably not the most PC, what do you call it, analogy there to make, but that's what I consider about it. I love this stuff. This is like, I love whatever. You love your old car, you love your classic car, right? Got that classic Mustang from 1978, which really wasn't much of a classic, but anyways, 1978 Trans Am. Got a 1978 Bandit Trans Am right here, right? It's a kick-ass car, love it, but it's falling apart. I've driven it too much. I'm kind of sick of looking at it. What's comes along now? Ooh, they're gonna redo they're redoing the Trans Am, and they're gonna make it $100,000, and I can't possibly afford it, right? And it's gonna have all kinds of navigation and bells and whistles, and maybe it's even electric now, and maybe it doesn't even have a gas engine, right? But it is a new Trans Am, and they painted it up. They've given it the same costume as the Bandit Trans Am, so it still has the same colors. Got the gold rims, got the gold, gold trim. It's got the black, got the gold bird on the hood, right? There's the gold bird right there on the hood. There's the gold bird on the hood, right? It's like, what one do you want? Sure, I like that classic Trans Am. Sure, it's still fun to drive. Still, I can appreciate it quite a bit, right? Is it better than this new fancy Trans Am? It's Apple. It's not apples to apples. And here's the thing that I'm going to consider with this stuff is classic comics. This should be what I'm talking about when I pointed this stuff out. Is these are not apples to apples. Yes, they're both comic books. Yes, they both happen to star Jessica Drew as the Spider-Woman. However, this is not drawn like this, right? And these two people, the Carmine Infantino, like I said, was probably in his 50s when he drew this. He's of a different world than this guy, who's probably maybe in his late 20s, early 30s, maybe. now in 2024, right? It's like night and day. I mean, these are two completely different sensibilities. I have a nostalgia, or I have like a romanticism about seeing things in the past. Like, oh, look, an old cash register, an old grocery store. You know, she's drawn differently. You know, they're using phones with cords. You know, I like when I see stuff like that. It really it touches a specific spot in my, you know, my pulls on my memberries, right? Member. Anyways, and but this one is different. You know, obviously, you know, she's got Starbucks coffee in this. San Francisco's, you know, just as wacko as San Francisco was here in 1978, but a different kind of wacko. You know, so it is what it is. We'll leave it at that. And that we've gone an hour. So again, if you still want to disagree with me, that's fine. You know, you give me something to talk about. So, and you give me something to think about. Like I said, I'm not so close-minded to not. If you, like I said, I mean, I made the point in my last video that make up your own mind for yourself. Clearly, I'm making up my own mind, right? But I'll listen to reason, listen to somebody's reason, and so if you disagree with me and you got a case, or you've got something to talk about, let me know. It may change my mind, it may not, right? It may make me think about something I didn't think about before, or it might make me even analyze my opinion. I'm not saying to prove you wrong, but I'm saying it might make me look a little closer at what I'm doing to answer your, you know, as my rebuttal to your, you know, your whatever you call it. Nice serve, my friend. You know, it's my whatever. Yeah. So, you know, if again you like this stuff, and if you like this stuff, I see that a lot of people really jumped on that last comic that I did. So I will probably stay on comics for a while because I've got, like I said, She-Hulk's coming out. I've got her to do. I'll probably be getting the Captain Marvel at some point, maybe this month, that type of thing. So, it is what it is. Sorry, not sure how to end it. I'm just going to end it. Alright, like and subscribe, comment, tell me your opinions, everything, you know, the whole 9 yards. Alright, take care, bye-bye.